FRM Part 1 Quantitative Analysis. The next aim statement is hypothesis testing and confidence intervals. Under the same statement, first we define, calculate and interpret mean and variance for the sample. Then we define and estimate the sample mean and sample variance. Then we look at the idea of confidence interval and how it is constructed. Then we look at the interpretation of null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis and the way they are constructed, and then how to calculate the test statistics. Then we look at the t statistic, how to understand and calculate it, the process of selecting and constructing null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis as we have said here. Then we look at the difference between the one-tailed test and two-tailed test, and we look at the circumstances under which each of them is going to be used. Finally, we understand the results of hypothesis testing with specific level of confidence. We'll also describe the principle of Chebyshev inequality and how it is useful where we do not have any information regarding the distribution of population. So let us start. First of all, let us look at these simple parameters and sample statistics. If the sample size is of n, we know there are two terms. For population, we have parameters. For example, mean will be represented by mu, which will be summation of all the values divided by number of elements in the whole population. But when we talk about the sample, we call it sample statistic. For example, the mean will be represented by x bar. That is the sample mean x bar, and it will be given by sigma of xi, the summation of all the values in the sample divided by number of elements in that sample. Similarly, we know for the variance, the population parameter variance, which is represented by sigma square, is summation of x minus xi, all the elements, the difference, then the square divided by n. So this is population parameter, which is population variance in this case. But when we talk about the sample variance, s square, there is a difference in the formula. As we can see here, instead of n, we are using n minus 1 here. So the degree of freedom is n minus 1 in this case when we are talking about the sample. The reason is that since in the calculation of sample, even the mean of the sample itself is an estimation, that is why we lose 1 degree of freedom and we are going to use n minus 1. So here we are trying to avoid the underestimation of variance or standard deviation. That is why we are using n minus 1. Now, if we look at the variance of the sample mean, that is sigma by root n, where sigma is the standard deviation of the population and n is the number of elements in a sample. So this is variance of the sample mean, which will be square of it. This is the standard deviation of the sample mean, which is sigma by root n. The variance is going to be sigma square by n. So this is the variance and sigma by root n is the standard deviation. So we have already seen the central limit theorem, which says if there is a population with mean mu and variance of sigma square, that is the standard deviation of sigma, if we are taking a lot of samples from it, each of the sample has n elements within it. Now if we look at the sampling distribution, that is for all those samples, there are many samples from the same distribution with the same number of elements in each sample. So if we look at the sampling distribution according to central limit theorem, the mean of this distribution will converge to the mean of population itself, mu, and the variance is going to be sigma square by n, and it will follow a normal distribution. So this is what we have learned from the central limit theorem. So accordingly, the variance of the sample mean is sigma square by n, and sigma by root n is the standard deviation, which is also called the standard error of estimation. Since we are using the sample for the estimation of population parameter, so this is also called the standard error of this estimation, which is sigma by root n. Let us move to another important concept, which is Chebyshev inequality. We already have some idea about the distribution. So this is a basic theorem which gives an idea about the distribution where it is not known. So it states that for any distribution with finite variance, the proportion of the observation within k standard deviation of the arithmetic mean is at least 1 minus 1 upon k square for all k is greater than 1. So let us say if we want to take the case where k is 2, so we would like to know that within plus minus 2 standard deviation, what percentage of total values lie, or suppose for that population mean is say 5, standard deviation is say 1. So we want to know how many values, what percentage of values lie between plus minus 2 standard deviation. What is that? 1 standard deviation is 1. So 2 standard deviation will be 2. So 5 minus 2 to 5 plus 2. So between 3 to 7 within this interval, what percentage of values would lie? There are say thousands of values in that population. Let us say there are 10,000 values. So we want to know how many of these values would lie between 3 and 7. So this theorem says that proportion of observation within k standard deviation of arithmetic mean is at least 1 minus 1 upon k square. So what is 1 minus 1 upon k square in this case? 1 minus 1 by 4, that is 0.75. 1 minus 0.25 is 0.75. So at least 75% of the values, that is, it says at least 7,500, that is 75% of 10,000. At least 7,500 values would lie between 3 and 7. So that is what we know from this, even though we do not know anything about the distribution per se. So if we already know the distribution, then we will be able to tell even more precise than that. So the advantage is that it can be applied to all kinds of distribution, especially when we do not know what kind of distribution it is. And if it is already known, then we can have better information regarding that distribution. Let us take one more example. What is the minimum percentage of any distribution that will lie within 3 standard deviation from the mean? So we can just put the value of k as 3. So it will be 1 upon 1 minus 3 square, that is 1 minus 1 upon 9. So it becomes about 89% roughly. So about 89% of the values are within plus minus 3 distribution, at least 89%. So if we know the distribution, we can tell more precisely. Yeah. Let us move to the next concept, the confidence interval. The confidence interval is nothing but a range of values within which a true population parameter lies. As we have seen in the last example of Chebyshev inequality, we had one range. Earlier we had 3 to 7. So this was the range in which the population parameter would lie, and there were number of percentage elements within this limit, or we can say what are the chances of one particular element being within it. So that chance is nothing but the confidence. So our confidence will be based on the probability, and it will be a range. which can be defined as this formula. Sample statistic minus critical value into standard error. So this is the lower bound, and then the population parameter, and the upper bound is sample statistic plus critical value into standard error. For example, we have already seen it in my previous example. The population parameter was mu, mean, which was greater or equal to sample statistic was mean of the sample, which was 5, minus critical value we have taken as 2 in first case, the value of k, into standard error. Suppose the standard error was 1, which we have assumed there. So 5 minus 2 into 1. This is the lower bound, and the upper bound is obviously 5 plus 2 into 1. This is how we did in the last example as well. So this 3 to 7 is our confidence interval of the population parameter. Let us take one more numerical example here. Suppose we do want to construct a 95% confidence interval. So it is another way of saying that the chance of any element being within that confidence interval should be 95%. Or in other terms, we can say that if this is the range, at least 95% of the values should lie within that interval. So what is that interval within which 95% of the values should lie, which is called 95% confidence interval. In this case, we are talking about z distribution or normal distribution. The sample statistic is given to be 137. So this is this value x bar, for example. The standard error sigma by root n is given to be 4.78. The critical value at 5% significance interval, 5% is alpha significance level, and 1.96 is the value of, this is the critical value. So we can call it a z score or critical value. So how do we construct? The sample statistic x bar minus critical value z into standard error, which is sigma by root n, and the upper bound is going to be x bar plus z into sigma by root n. So in this case, we can just put the values here, 137 minus 1.96 into 4.78, and similarly the upper bound is 137 plus 1.96 into 4.78. So this is how you get the confidence interval for a given level of significance. So significance level is nothing but 1 minus the confidence interval. So if we want to know alpha significance level, it is 1 minus 0.95. So we can say 95% confidence interval or 0.05 significance level or 5% significance level. So that is one and the same thing. So this was about confidence interval. Let us look at the hypothesis testing, the main concept. In hypothesis testing, we have two hypotheses. One is null hypothesis, which is represented by H naught, and then there is alternative hypothesis, which is represented by HA, H naught and HA. So alternative hypothesis is the one which researcher is collecting evidence for, and H naught is the one which the researcher wants to reject. So null hypothesis is what the researcher wants to reject by collecting evidence against it. So there are two ways. One, he finds evidence to reject the null hypothesis, or he does not find sufficient evidence within a level of significance to reject. So we never accept a null hypothesis, either we reject it. So if we find sufficient evidence, we can reject the null hypothesis and we can support alternative hypothesis, or we can say that we have not find enough evidence to reject the null hypothesis. So there are only two cases. So null hypothesis is usually the hypothesis that researcher wants to gather evidence against, That is the hypothesis to be tested, and alternative for which we are trying to support. Now let us look at the steps involved in hypothesis testing. First is to state the hypothesis. So we have to select what is the hypothesis based on the problem given. Then we select which is the appropriate test statistic to measure in this case. For example, if we want to measure the mean of the population, we want to say something about the mean, and standard deviation of population is known. So we use z-test, z-statistic. If the standard deviation of population is not known, we use t-test, that is the difference. If we want to comment about the, say, variance of the population, then we use chi-square test. If you want to compare the variance of two populations, then we use f-test. So similarly, based on the problem, we can pick up what is the appropriate test statistic and calculate it. Then we specify the level of significance. As we have seen, the value of alpha or the confidence interval, if we represent it by 1 minus alpha. So we need to decide how sure we want to be about that hypothesis. So that is represented by a level of significance that should be specified. Then we describe the decision rule regarding the hypothesis, how we are going to select or reject. Then we collect the sample and make the calculation for the sample statistic, test statistic. And then finally we make the statistical decision regarding the hypothesis, whether we can reject the null hypothesis or we do not have sufficient evidence to reject the null hypothesis. So there can be only two cases, that is a statistical decision. And finally, based on our statistical decision, we can make an economic or investment decision for which we have conducted this test. So we need to further consider certain factors in order to take the investment or economic decision. So these were the broad steps in the process of hypothesis testing. Let us move to the next slide. There are a few terms regarding it. Let us be clear about them before moving further. First are the type 1 and type 2 errors. So we have already seen what is null hypothesis, what is alternative hypothesis. There are two hypotheses. Type 1 error is possible where we reject the null hypothesis when it is true. So there will be that error where we are rejecting a null hypothesis though it was true. So this is a type 1 kind of error. There could be another error, type 2 error, where we are not rejecting null hypothesis which is false. So that is type 2 error. So there are totally 4 possibilities. One, that we are rejecting the null where it is false. So that is right decision, no error. The second possibility, we do not reject null hypothesis where it is true. So it is true, we are not rejecting it. That is a right decision. Then there are two cases of errors. Type 1 error where we are rejecting the null hypothesis where it is true. That is type 1 error. And the fourth case is type 2 error where we are not rejecting where it was false. So we have two kinds of errors. So while doing statistical testing, we need to remember that we cannot reduce both the errors simultaneously. Even in the real life, if we try to reduce type 1 error, automatically type 2 error will be higher and vice versa. So in real life, we always need to make a balance between these two. It also depends on the situation. In certain situations, type 1 error is more critical. In another situation, type 2 error is going to be more critical. For example, when we are talking about a drug sample, we need to be more worried about type 2 error because we cannot get into a situation where we are not rejecting where it is not good quality. Similarly, there could be some other case for type 1 error. We already talked about it. The level of significance alpha, that is also 1 minus confidence interval. We've already seen, suppose confidence interval is 95%. That is the area we are talking about, or that is a probability of an element being within that interval. So there are 95% chances that a particular element will lie within this range. So our confidence interval is 95% and significance level is 0.05 or 5%. So this 5% represents the level of significance. Also, this alpha is the probability of type 1 error. So this needs to be remembered. This 5% also represents there are 5% chances that we are going to reject the null hypothesis where it is true. So that represents significance level of a test. On the other hand, we have type 2 error for which we have false negative rate. So beta is probability of type 2 error. We call it false negative rate. That is not rejecting a null hypothesis where it is false. So that is a probability of type 2 error. And if we say power of test, what is the power of the statistical test? It is 1 minus beta. So suppose the probability of type 2 error is 0.02 or beta is 0.02 or 2%. The power of test is 98% or 0.98. That is the power of test. So based on these two, type 1 and type 2 errors, we have two parameters which will give us about the quality of test. So it tells us about what kind of error we are more concerned, where we have kept the small interval. Let us look at one more concept, which is p-value. So one way of testing it, we have test statistic, and that could be compared with the critical value. For this comparison, we do not need to use p-value, but we can convert that into probability, that is p-value, and take a decision. The test statistic can be converted into p-value, and this side we are going to have level of significance. These can be compared and the decision can be taken. So for that, the thumb rule is, if p-value is lower, then we reject the null hypothesis. If p-value is greater than the level of significance, then we do not reject the null hypothesis. So we need to remember p-value should be lower. So this will be always true. While this relationship between test statistic and critical value will depend on the distribution. For some distributions it will be greater, for some distributions it will be less. But for p-value the relationship is same. So we need to remember this. Now let us move ahead. Look at the formulation of the hypothesis. How do we formulate it? So it can be done in three different ways. First is when we are comparing two values. Here our null hypothesis that the value of the population parameter is equal to a constant. For example, we can say the mean of the population is say 35. This is our null hypothesis which we want to reject. Our alternative hypothesis is that mu is not equal to 35. We want to prove that it is not equal to 35, or we are trying to reject the null hypothesis. So alternative hypothesis not equal to. So this will be the case of two-tailed hypothesis where the alternative has both sides. So this is 35. We are talking about both left hand side as well as right hand side. Other case could be when we are saying the value of mu is less than or equal to 35. The alternative hypothesis automatically becomes that mu is greater than 35. So if we want to reject the null hypothesis that it is less, or in other words we want to prove that mu is greater than 35, then we take this as alternative hypothesis. So this is one-tailed test. Another case of one tail test could be where we are trying to prove opposite. Mu is greater or equal to 35, mu is less than 35. So we are trying to prove that mu or the population mean is less than 35. Automatically the null hypothesis is mu is greater or equal to 35. So this is for less than case. So again this is also a one tail test. So we understand the one tailed hypothesis and two tailed hypothesis based on this formulation. So when we are looking at the distribution, we need to remember whether we are trying to look at this probability of left side or the probability of right side or probability of both. So if you want to know what is the probability of a number being at the center, then we look at the probability on both sides. If we are talking about greater or less, then we have to look only one side. Now let us see how do we choose an appropriate test statistic. So this test statistic is a value which is derived from the sample data, and it is a deciding factor whether to reject or accept the null hypothesis. So that is our critical value, test statistic. We have already seen the example. When we are talking about the confidence interval, we were using it in this way. It was x bar plus minus z score into sigma by root n. This was the confidence interval. Now if we want to calculate the test statistic, the value of z, we simply write x bar minus mu. X bar is our sample mean, mu is our population parameter, sigma by root n is our standard error, where we can say sigma is population standard deviation and n is the number of elements in the sample. So if we want to estimate the mean and we are calculating z score, this is our test statistic if we are going with normal distribution or using z statistic. So that becomes our formula. We can also look at it in terms of standard normal distribution. We know for standard normal distribution, mean is 0 and standard deviation is 1. So we are just converting that into standard normal distribution. So we are subtracting the population mean and dividing by the standard deviation of sample. Now let us see in which cases we should take z distribution and which cases t distribution. When the distribution is given to be normal, we do not need to worry about whether the sample is small or large. Okay, we are going to use same statistic in both the cases. For example, if the variance is known, use z statistic for both the cases. If it is not known, use t statistic for both the cases. But if the distribution is not given to be normal, then we cannot do with a small sample. We definitely need a large sample, and the rule remains the same. If the variance is known, use z statistic. If it is unknown, use t statistic. The only difference is if the distribution is not normal, then we need to have a large sample. If the sample is small, then we cannot do any hypothesis testing in that case. Now let us take one numerical example to clarify hypothesis testing. Suppose there is a sample of 70 products from an assembly line. So n, the number of elements in a sample, is 70. It has a mean length of 137 centimeters. Suppose this is the sample mean. So x bar is 137. The standard deviation of the sample is given to be 30.2 centimeter. We need to use these values to test whether or not the mean of length of product is different from 150 centimeter. That is a part A. Let us create the hypothesis first for the part A. It says it is different from 150 centimeter. So that is our alternative hypothesis, that it is not equal to 150. What is not equal to 150? The mean, mu. So null hypothesis automatically becomes the mu is equal to 150. Okay. Now x bar is given to us 137. Sigma by root n, standard error is 30.2 divided by square root of 70. That is our standard error, right? So which statistic we should use here, Z or T? Since the sample standard deviation is given and the population standard deviation is unknown, we are going with T distribution. Okay, so let us calculate T statistic. The formula remains the same, x bar minus mu divided by sigma by root n. So sigma by root n value will come from this place and automatically we get T statistic. Then the degree of freedom is n minus 1, which is 69. So for 69 degree of freedom, alpha is equal to, let us say the significance level, it is not given, let us assume it is 0.05. So for 0.05 we can calculate the value of T, which is critical value of T. Now if this T statistic greater than the upper limit or less than the lower limit, then we can reject the null hypothesis. So P value will be lower in that case. But if it is higher than the lower limit and lower than the higher limit, then it is coming in between and P value is higher, so we cannot reject the null hypothesis. Similarly, part B says it is not less than 145 centimeters. So for part B, the alternative hypothesis is going to be mu is not less than 145 centimeter. So automatically the null hypothesis is mu is greater or equal to 145 centimeter. So our T statistic is going to be the same. The only thing is we are not going to look at both sides. We are going to just look at the right hand side. So if this is 145, say center is 737. So we are going to look at this probability. What is this probability? That would come from table, that P value, and this P value would come from the confidence interval or level of significance. So we compare whether P value is less than 0.05 or greater than 0.05. If it is less, then we reject the null hypothesis. If it is more, then we do not reject. Okay, so this is how we broadly do hypothesis testing. Now let us take a few numerical examples and others so that we get a clarity over the chapter. First question says, for a study of a behavior of mean price to book value ratio for a sample of small cap companies, which of the following statement is most accurate? Let us look at the statements. One says 1 minus confidence interval of the test represents the probability of making type 2 error. We know that 1 minus confidence interval is alpha, which is the probability of type 1 error. We have already seen it, so this is wrong. B says a type 1 error represents the failure to reject the null hypothesis when it is in truth false. We know that the type 1 error is rejecting the null hypothesis when it is true. This definition is for type 2 error, not type 1. So even B is wrong. Option C says type 2 error represents the rejection of null hypothesis when it is true. No, this is about type 1 error. The rejecting the null hypothesis when it is true is type 1 error. So even this is wrong. Option D says the significance level of the test, which is alpha, represents the probability of making type 1 error. Yes, that is right. So option D is correct. Let us look at the next question. Question number 2 says, which of the following statements regarding type 1 and type 2 error is most accurate? Alternative A says type 1 error is failing to reject the null hypothesis when it is actually false. No, that is type 2 error. Type 1 is rejecting when it is true. Type 2 error is rejecting the null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis when it is true. We do not reject the alternative hypothesis. We always reject the null hypothesis. Type 2 error is rejecting the null hypothesis when it is actually false. There will be no error. When we are rejecting a null hypothesis when it is false, there will be no error. Option D says type 1 error is rejecting the null hypothesis when it is actually true. This is right. So again option D is correct. Let us look at question number 3. This is a numerical. It says research on a university claims that on an average it takes people 30 minutes to find a parking space on campus. Professor does not think so. He takes a sample of last 5 minutes. He drove to the campus. Calculated mean of 20. So this is sample mean, which is x bar. Population standard deviation is given, mu, which is 6. And assuming it is normally distributed, so we can use z-score, z-test statistic here. What is the alternative hypothesis? What do we want to prove? Professor does not think it takes that long. He thinks that mu is, sorry, this is the standard deviation, so this is sigma. So alternative hypothesis is mu is less than 30. It does not take that long. So that is your alternative hypothesis. So clearly the option B is correct. Let us look at the next question based on the same information. Which of the following test is conducted? We have already seen that sigma, which is the population standard deviation, is given. So automatically we conduct z-test. And since the normal distribution is given, we do not need to worry about the sample size. C is the right option. Let us look at the next question. The value of the test statistic. So the value of test statistic will be x minus mu bar, x bar minus mu divided by sigma by root n, which is the standard error. So in this question, let us see these values. X bar is given to be 20, sigma is 6, mu is to be calculated. He has taken a sample of last 5 times he drove to the campus. Number of elements in the sample are 5. So let us put these values. X bar is 20 minus 30 divided by sigma, which is 6 divided by square root of 5. This gives us negative 3.727. That is option C. Let us move to question number 6. It says what is the test structure, whether it is one-tail test or two-tail test or chi-square. We know it is not chi-square test, definitely it is a z-test. What was the null hypothesis? Mu is greater or equal to 30. Alternative hypothesis was mu is less than 30. So obviously this is a one-tail test. Option A is correct. Let us move to question number 7. It says the critical value of z statistic at alpha equal to 0.1. This is simple. Alpha is 0.1, confidence interval is 0.9. We just need to look at the z statistic critical value from the table. The table will give us at 0.9 it is 1.28, and the sign will be negative since we are talking about the negative side here, the left hand side here, not the right hand side. Let us look at the last question. What is the conclusion? So in order to find out the conclusion, what we need to do? We need to look at the test statistic of z and the critical value. We know that the critical value was minus 1.28 from the last question, and the test statistic also we have calculated 3.727. So obviously the critical value is higher, so automatically it falls on left hand side, less than the critical value. So we can reject the null hypothesis. Or we can also say that p value is lower than the alpha, which was 0.1. So we can reject the null hypothesis. So that was all about the basics of confidence interval and hypothesis testing.